All right, so I just got done watching Beef, this new series on Netflix last night, and since last night I've been dying to talk about this series with somebody. So I said, you know what, rather than wait to have that conversation with somebody, I'm just going to set up a camera and give my overall thoughts on this series. Don't worry, if you haven't seen the series, I'm going to try to start off just with my thoughts on it and no spoilers, right? So I'll be very clear when that spoilers territory begins, so that way if you're interested at all in this series, or if anything that I say here catches your attention, you don't have to worry about the series being spoiled. So with that being said, yeah, these are my thoughts on Beef, man. First, I want to begin by saying I had no idea what this series was about. I just decided to put it on and started watching it. I had only heard about this series on like a TikTok video that I had seen the other day. Other than that, I know nothing about it. And I said, you know what? Let me just give it a try. And from immediately, just the first opening scene it immediately caught my attention. I saw, first off, it's an A24 produced series. I don't know if they've ever done any series before this. I know it's the first time that I've ever heard of that. I absolutely love that I don't know if you call it, I guess, a publisher. I love them, you know, and they know how to choose their movies well. They rarely miss, and this is another hit for me. So they started off strong there. It has Steven Yeun, it has Ali Wong as well, two great actors. Steven Yeun is on a tear recently. We all know him mostly from The Walking Dead, but he's been doing a lot of great things in these recent years. And one thing that I just discovered right now before I turned the camera on, I love when this happens, when I watch something and I love it. I don't even know who created it, who's the person behind this, and then I look them up and it's somebody that is a creator of other things that I love. And that way, you know, I don't know, I love when that happens. And in this case, the creator is Lee Sung Jin. So I looked him up. I don't know him by name, but immediately he's a writer and director known for Beef 2023, Undone, and Dave, two of my other favorite series of all time. Like Undone, especially season 1, was incredible. If you haven't watched that, that's on Amazon Prime. Incredible first season. The second season was good, but not as good as the first one. The same thing for Dave. I absolutely love Dave season 1. Season 2, not so much, but the point is those are great series, and now we have Beef. I hope to keep it at one season because this is perfect. The best thing I can say about this series, to me, this is very close, if not a masterpiece. Like this is one of the best single seasons that I've ever seen ever. And I absolutely love that it's contained. It has a beginning, it has an end. It doesn't leave you with the cliffhanger hoping for season 2. No, this is it. You get all, I think it's 10 episodes, and you have closure to pretty much everything that they set up in the series. There's absolutely no filler episode. Everything is done with intention. Everything moves the story forward. Everything is done intentionally, and I absolutely love that about it. The cast, like I said, is incredible. I just mentioned those two. Joseph Lee, he does a very good job. Young Mazino, which is the main character's brother, man, I really felt for that character. I love the way, like, I know people like that. I know that people like him. He feels like somebody that I know, like a friend. So I absolutely love the cast. David Cho, which I only know him from TikTok, basically. I see him in interviews. I see him, you know, working with other people that I enjoy. And then this is the first time that I've consciously seen something from him. Man, the list goes on. I'm looking at the cast right here. There are no misses. Like I said, going back to that intentionality where there's no filler episodes, there's nothing there just to waste time. I'm looking at the cast here. Usually when you look at a cast from a movie, you know, the first maybe 1, 2, 3 actors, those are like the main people. Everybody else is secondary. As I'm looking at the cast here, I'm like, every single actor and actress here had their time on screen and they killed it. Every single one, it was purposeful. They served a purpose in the series. No time wasted whatsoever. Only when I get to like maybe like the 15th actor or 12th actor, that's when you start getting into like secondary characters territory, ones that I don't know as well. But man, yeah, that was incredible. The writing was incredible. It's kind of like a dark comedy in a sense. Just to give you an overall pitch, it's basically, I mean, I don't want to spoil it. Maybe it's better to go in not even knowing absolutely nothing about it. So if that's the case, cut this video off right here. But for those of you that at least want to plot, you know, what the series is about, it's essentially about these two people, which is, you know, Steven Yeun and Ali Wong, strangers, and they basically get into like a road rage situation, right? They almost crash, and then they, you know, stick the middle finger up to one another, and they chase one another. So, and then that situation basically start spiraling out of control, and that's what the series is about. All right, so that's the most simple I could explain the series. That in and of itself doesn't seem like an interesting premise. I promise you, it is. I promise you that the way that this series delivers, like I'm really trying to be emphatic about how good this series is. You have to watch it. It is weird. It is A24, which is an independent studio. You know, they do a lot of indies. They do a lot of strange things, so it might not appeal to everybody. This is about, sorry about that, hit the mic. This is about, as, I don't even know how to say that. Like, I think it's very difficult for you to watch this and not like it because it's weird or independent. Like, it really does appeal to a broader audience than typical, but it still is the A24 style. It still is an indie film, so there's still that to it, and it does get kind of weird, especially towards the end. I love weird movies. This is it for me. And I rarely watch series. That's another point to this. I rarely watch series, especially if I don't know that they have an ending. Like, I can watch a series if you tell me it's only 2 seasons, only 5 seasons, and it's done. Okay, so I'm going to watch it because I know it has a beginning and an end. I rarely watch new series. I rarely watch series as they're going on because I can't get behind the not knowing when it's going to end, getting into filler episodes, not knowing where the story's going, not knowing if they have a clear vision for it or if they're just improvising. You know, the more people watch, well, the more episodes we're going to create, and then when it starts dying down, then we'll finish it. I don't enjoy that. So I tend to steer away from series as they're running. This one, it just captured me instantly. And I wanted to keep watching. I watched 2 episodes one day, and then last night I just watched every other. I just binged the rest of the series because it's so good. And I was telling a couple of friends of mine today that it's not like other series that kind of hook you. Like, the episode is somewhat, but then it ends on a cliffhanger, so you just want to keep watching it. This is not that. This doesn't have those big, huge cliffhangers at the end of every episode that force you to watch the next episode just to see what happens next. It's just that every single episode is so good. The story is so good. It progresses so naturally, so perfectly, and so intensely that you just want to keep watching. You can't stop watching because you do want to know how this ends. Every step of the way I was uncomfortable, but in a good way. I was constantly saying to myself, to these characters, like, why are you doing this? No, please don't do that. Oh, I can't stand this situation. I was constantly feeling uncomfortable with everything that was going on, but in a good way, not in a way that makes it unenjoyable. And ultimately, the payoff is worth it. So yeah, you do feel kind of uncomfortable going on along the way. Every time I think, I don't know how I feel about this, the show, you know, it grabs me again and it says, no, this is part of the story. This is worth it. This has to be the case in order for this to happen. So the payoff to me was just perfect. Like, it finishes in a perfect way to where everything that happened beforehand is worth it. Basically, everything is intentional. That word again, everything works towards that ending, to where the ending is not like they didn't know how to end it, so they just cut it here. It's not a cliffhanger. It's nothing like that. It's the perfect ending to everything that they have set up. So that is very rare in a series, and even in some movies. So yeah, that's basically my overall thoughts on it. This is where the spoiler territory will come in then. I'm gonna try to talk just not a lot of stuff, but just a few things that I do want to highlight that I absolutely loved about the series. So spoilers from here on out. You've been warned. Go watch it. Come back. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. All right, so for everybody else that stuck around, yeah, this is what I want to say about the series. Like, I barely slept last night just thinking about what exactly was the purpose of the series, and not because it's an ambiguous series. It's not. The story is very, very clear, but it has so many layers, so many, I guess, distinct messages, even though they're all related to it, that I just couldn't stop analyzing it. I couldn't stop analyzing the overall story and what the purpose, like what message maybe they were trying to tell us, convey through the general story. And then I couldn't stop thinking about specific moments in the series, specific characters, and what those characters and moments taught me as a human being. So overall, from the very first episode, I thought, okay, this is about empathy. This is about where we live our lives. We don't know what anybody else is going through. Like, I don't know what you're going through. Like, if I'm driving And I tend to get angry at people. I rarely like. I'm not a road rage guy, but I do get so angry being out in the world, man. I can't stand people. I can't stand the way they do things sometimes. So if I'm out in the street and I'm driving and somebody almost comes crashing, or if they have their full lights on or whatever, the headlights on, and I can't see, I start criticizing them, whether it's in my mind or with the person that I'm with. Like, why are people like this? Like, people can't drive. They should get off the streets, etc. But the fact of the matter is, I don't know what's going on in that person's life. Like, I don't know why they're doing what they're doing at that moment. For all I know, like, they could be going through the worst time in their life right now, and that's why they're a little bit out of control. Granted, you shouldn't be driving under those circumstances, but we're human beings. The point is that we come across and we live our lives expecting people to like conform to what we like and don't like. We interact with people, we get angry with them, we yell at them, we criticize them, we say this or that, and we don't know what they're actually going through, man. And we don't take the time to get to know what they're going through. And nobody does that with us either. So this series really, really made it a point to emphasize that. That's what I think the overall message is to this series, is that we're human beings. We're all on the same boat together. And yet we don't take the time to know each other at all. We're all in our own island within this boat, which is a crazy metaphor, right? But that's essentially how it feels sometimes. We're on our own individual islands, even though we're all on the same boat. And we're so isolated from one another in many senses. And that's why we lack this empathy at times for one another. And we don't know. We just don't know. And we should try a little bit more to know, especially our loved ones. Right? The people that we have close. I get not knowing and not taking the time to ask a random stranger, how's your day doing? What are you going through? Do you need help? Do you need somebody to talk to? I understand not doing that with random strangers and everybody that you meet across the way, but at the very least, our loved ones, right? Like we should know better our loved ones. And the fact of the matter is we don't. I don't. And that's something that made me think. I'm not like that. And that's not a good thing. It's really not a good thing. But then we have individual specific moments. Like, I absolutely love the mom's moment in one of the episodes. What's her name? I'm looking for the actress. So she's Patty Yasutake. I'm sorry if I don't pronounce them right. And she plays Fumi Fumi. And she's like the mother-in-law / mother. She's George's mother and Amy's mother-in-law. And there's this one episode where she was going to eat with Amy, and then Amy canceled her plan, so she just went away. And up to that point, they've showed this mother as like this stern woman. She talks down to them. She's always very overly critical and all of that stuff. And at this point, she's like, I don't care. Like, we canceled the dinner, whatever. And then she goes to eat by herself, and then she's calling apparently friends of hers, and they don't pick up. And she leaves everybody the same message. So she's like, hey, it's me. I just wanted to catch up a little bit. And then she hangs up and then calls somebody else. Hey, it's me. I just wanted to catch up a little bit. Call me back. And then she hangs up. And then after a few minutes, her phone rings and she gets visibly happy. She's like, oh, she's happy when she looks at the phone. It's not somebody. It's her lawyer to talk about, finances or whatever. That sense of loneliness really, really got me, man. Like, it really, really got me. Again, it goes back to that not knowing what people are going through. So I was judging her and criticizing her up to that point. Then I realized that's just a facade, right? That's how lonely she is, how she's struggling financially, etc. And I hated that feeling. I hated it, and it makes me think of my parents and older generation and stuff like that. Like, how are they living their lives? How are they feeling? And it's just, I hated it, but I loved it from an artistic perspective, right? And then there's everything from the main characters, which, I can't say enough about their storylines, how they touch on, like, for example, past trauma, how trauma affects our present and everything around us and the future generations, but how sometimes we think that the trauma is going to affect future generations or our lives, and therefore we make decisions based on that. We avoid certain things because we don't want our past trauma to affect them. And then, in a sense, that is the trauma. The trauma is making decisions for us. And that was just so eye-opening, the way they portrayed that in these two very different, but very similar characters. I absolutely love that. the Amy character, which as at one point I was like, no, you're like very, very unlikable. What she's doing versus what what's his name, Danny's character, what he's doing versus what she's doing, very different. Like I couldn't put them on the same page. I'm like, what you're doing is horrible. You're destroying a person's life. And what he's doing, he was just trying to, get back at you. He was just trying to have a little fun or whatever. Like I couldn't put them on the same page. And that was the first moment, I think, or one of the first moments where I felt for a moment, and that was towards the end, actually, now I think about it. And where I started feeling, I think the series kind of missed it right here. They missed the mark. They're trying to make me feel for both of them, but they clearly made one character far worse than the other. But then I understand, no, that's not the case. They correct it very, very quickly. I understand she's not the one. I'm talking specifically, I forgot that I was in spoiler territory already. I'm talking specifically about the part where apparently it seems like she burned this guy's house down. Like once she did that, I was like, I can't get behind that at all. Like you made this character into a completely unlikable character. Not that any of them are likable to begin with, but she was. I said no. Like that is a step way too far from what compared to what Danny was doing. But then they clarify it wasn't really her, so it took it down, and then they get into their backstories, which I absolutely love the way they did that. The way they did the flashbacks. Any other series would have done it in a filler episode. Here they do it as they're continuing the story forward. Every once in a while they give you a flashback, and I love that. Was masterfully done. I absolutely love that. But Amy's trauma specifically, like there are a few quotable lines in this. One that really got me was when she was having the affair with I say in quotation marks because it's still not an affair at this point. When they're in Las Vegas with Danny's brother, what's his name, Paul, which is young Masino. Anyway, the Paul character, they're in the Las Vegas hotel, whatever, and they're having a conversation, and she says at one point, like he's complaining about his brother and how he pretty much brings everybody down with his negativity and his problems, his issues, and she says kind of sarcastically, but I don't think he didn't perceive it that sarcastically. She's like, yeah, it really is selfish for broken people to share their brokenness. Oh man, what a line. What a powerful line. It's selfish for broken people to share their brokenness. How true is that? Like it immediately, I thought a few things, right? From my own life, from other movies and stuff that I've seen. I thought The Joker, the movie with Joaquin Phoenix, when he's sitting with his psychiatrist or whatever. And I can't remember the exact line because I've only seen that movie once when it came out in the theaters. But essentially he's like, one of the worst things about dealing with mental health is the world expects you to act like you don't have a mental health issue. The world wants you to put on a happy face and just live. Don't burden anybody with your issues. And that's what I thought about when she said that line. I'm like, how true is that? When I'm going through issues and I need help, or I want at the very least somebody to talk to, you do feel like you are being a burden to people. Conversely, people get burdened by it. So it is a real issue. And sometimes, what that provokes is that we become our own burden. We bury all these things down. We don't deal with them. We don't let go of them, etc. It becomes destructive in our lives because we feel selfish when we're not okay. We feel selfish for wanting somebody to talk to. We feel selfish for wanting or needing help. And and that in itself is complex, because it depends on the situation. It depends, there are people that have the victim mentality. There are it depends on so many factors, but in a general sense, man, it's very, very true, and it's very, very unhealthy. So that her trauma, and the other part was when she's talking to the psychologist, and which to me is her best performance. That scene right there when she's talking to the psychologist one-on-one, and she's clearly talking about her mistakes and her having cheated on him, but she's not admitting it. So she's talking about him, quote unquote, emotionally cheating on her. And she's asking her questions, and I absolutely love when she asked the psychologist, like, do you think, holding back tears and all that, like, do you think that people can love unconditionally? And I know there's another scene where she says it, and she brings that up again, which was the real powerful one. But essentially that whole concept to me was so impactful of sometimes we feel like we can't be our genuine selves. We can't show the dark side to people because we fear we won't be loved if we do. We fear that people won't love us when they find out who we really are. So we build those walls up and we put on this facade so that we can experience love. But that isn't love. There's always something there that's missing because we're not being completely ourselves. And that, again, such a powerful moment. So her trauma, her whole backstory, I identify with it so much and I absolutely loved it. When it goes to Danny's backstory, yeah, I couldn't get behind. It's interesting because I was thinking Amy was a real bad one, and then they show her backstory, and initially I didn't care, but then I realized, oh yeah, this is real trauma, and I can identify with some of the stuff that she's going through and saying. When he goes to Danny's like this likable character, and he doesn't seem like a bad guy, but then when they show what he does in the past, specifically throwing away the his brother's letters, I don't know how do you call it in English, like basically trying to get into college, and he throws those letters away so that they never got the applications. That's the word I was looking for, and therefore he doesn't go to college. So I was like, that's a horrible thing. You're a bad person. I'm here thinking, yeah, this is your brother. You're taking care of him. You're trying to help him out. You're not being the best person, but you're trying to help him out or whatever. No. You just don't want to be alone. You brought him down to your level because you feared that he was going to leave. He was going to leave you behind. You were going to struggle. You were going to stay struggling alone. So you brought him down. He's there because of you. And again, that in itself is also complex because it's not that black and white either. Like, did you, as your brother, George? No, not his name is not George. His brother, Paul. I keep forgetting names. Like, when that happened, did you ever contact any of the colleges and ask them if they got your application? Did you try to apply any other year? Have you ever investigated any other stuff? Did you have any other options? So it's not as black and white either. Like, he's not the victim, but it's still wrong what Danny did, right? It's still wrong what Danny did. And again, I can identify in a sense. Sometimes you do feel like people are leaving you behind, especially when you grow up with somebody and you see all their dreams and their aspirations. And sometimes it's very easy to get into this mentality, woe is me, I'm never going to be able to do nothing in life. And this person is about to be successful and I'm jealous of that. And I don't want them to get there, right? And it's also the sense of I don't want to be alone. So even if it takes bringing people down and not letting them proceed, not letting them progress and live their lives, I'm going to do it because I don't want to be alone. And again, it goes back to trauma. All these people are just broken people. And then the last thing I'm going to say, I'm going to fast forward to, because there's other moments, but I want to fast forward to the end. That final episode, like it could have ended in episode 9. I guess it's 10 episodes, right? I'm pretty sure it's 10 episodes. Yeah, 10 episodes. Episode 9, it could have ended there. I was like, when they went off the cliff, I think that would have been a perfect ending if they had died there, and that would have been the end of the series. It would have been something like, those are the consequences. Like those are the final consequences for everything that they've done throughout the rest of the series. And I would have been fine with that. The fact that they gave us another episode, and I was getting kind of worried, like, are they really going to end this? Are they going to try to give us a second season? No, they really ended it. And the way they did it was, again, perfect, because that final episode captures what this series is. It has that perfect tone of darkness and comedy. So it's kind of like a dark comedy. It has this weirdness to it, but it's very, very intense and dramatic. So I absolutely love the way they did it. That whole final conversation where they're talking to one another and eventually they blend and they become one another. And that goes back to the overall message that I said at the beginning of this. Empathy, understanding what other people are going through. And they did it literally in that final scene, right? Where they kind of literally, in a sense, become one another because they're talking. It was kind of hard to follow for a time because I was like, oh, wait, Danny's talking, but he's actually Amy in this scene. Amy's talking, but she's actually Danny. So it was kind of hard to follow at times, but eventually I gave up and I said, that's not the point. The point is that whatever one says, the other one can say as well. They've gone through similar situations. Like when we realize that we're all human beings, we're all in the same boat. Yeah, we have different lives, different stories, different pasts, etc. But in a sense, we're very, very much the same. We all want to be happy. We all want love. We all want to succeed in life. And whatever the specifics are different, that overall image is the same. So it didn't really matter who was talking at that moment in that scene. Whatever they're saying applies to both. And I absolutely love that. And then obviously the masterful scene, which is the final scene in the whole series, is the hospital scene. It was just done perfectly. It's not like you guys saw it. If you're watching at this point, you guys saw it. So there's no need in me explaining it, but I absolutely loved it, man. To think that's the person, I'm putting myself in Danny's shoes. That's the person, Amy, who is going to be there with you through that difficult time. Not your brother, not your parents, not the people that you love, the person that you've hated all this time. That's the person that ends up by your side when you need it most. How incredible is that? And the same could be said vice versa, right? But how incredible is that scene to the overall theme of the series? Perfect. Just completely perfect. I loved it. I loved the visuals, and I haven't even talked about like writing specific dialogues or directing or anything like that, because that scene, for example, incredibly directed. The way the camera pans and then you see Amy's face behind, and then the overall view from the top, and the days going by, like, so perfectly directed. They so perfectly shot. It was incredible. And to end there, it opens the door for so much conversation, so much stuff that I haven't even said. Like, I haven't even gotten into, because I haven't grasped it yet. I just finished watching it last night, but like the titles of every episode, the titles of every episode and the openings of every episode with the paintings, like, clearly there's a whole other meaning there as well. That final scene itself can lend itself to conversation. Is very similar to The Last of Us Part 1. I'm going to call it Part 1, the end of that game, where it's kind of ambiguous, like what exactly is going on, what that means, where are they going into in the future. That's how I felt at the end of this series. Like, exactly what does that mean? Where would they go after the camera shuts off? Where do they go from there? Is Danny going to face prison time or no? Are they forming a relationship? Did her marriage completely to get destroyed or not? Like, there's so many questions, but they're all tangential questions to the point where it doesn't feel like there isn't closure. There is definite closure in this series, but they did such a great job at letting us get to know these characters that you're left wondering what is going to go on with the rest of their lives. I want to watch this series until they die, like until I die, for years or whatever. Like, that's how it feels. I want to continue to be in these characters' lives because they did it so well. So it does have closure, but you do want to see more in a sense. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Beef, man. A 10 out of 10, complete masterpiece in my opinion. One of the best series or single seasons that I've ever seen. I hope they leave it there. I hope they don't give us any season 2, even if it's some like other characters or whatever. I can't imagine replicating what this season did. This was so special because it's so unique. I don't want to see more of it. I don't want to see anything else in that world, nothing. Or in that same vein. This is it. This is perfect. Let's leave it at that. Yeah, those are my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. And if you like this type of content, remember to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Thanks for watching. Until next time.